Yeah, let's go.
I'm good. Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. Welcome to this edition of Dolphins Deep Dive. I am Chris Perkins, your Miami Dolphins columnist. This is my colleague, David Furones, your Miami Dolphins beat writer for the Sun Sentinel. And man, what a show we have for you. What a week we've had for you. Look, we got off-field adversity in full bloom, right? With Tua Tagovailoa and his head injury and the concussion diagnosis, or was it a concussion? What is concussion protocol? We've also got a little bit of on-field adversity, right? And we've got quarterback Teddy Bridgewater starting against the Jets, at the Jets this week, a 500 team, a team that has two decent victories, right, over Cleveland and over Pittsburgh. But we're also watching Xavier Howard and his groin injury. We're watching fellow cornerback Byron Jones and seeing if he comes back from the physically unable to perform list with that leg injury. We're also watching Teron Armstead's toe injury, the left tackle. So we got a lot of stuff to watch here. Let's dive in. So, listen, David Furones, the Tua question of how long he should be sidelined and when he can come back, I would say that we're in a very tenuous position here because optics are probably playing a role in this now, right? The public is going to be wary if he's cleared too soon. The football watching and non-football watching public, the NFL and the NFLPA, the Players Association, say changes are coming to the protocol, that if a player shows some gross motor instability, I believe that's the term, staggering around, that might be a sign of a no-go, that the player should come out. David, I will ask you first, what do you think should happen with as far as Tua's return and changes to the concussion protocol?
Yeah, it was interesting you started off with the optics portion of it, which I wondered if this would happen if the Dolphins would just rule Tua out early in the week, as they ended up doing. Just rule him out on Monday. You don't even have the first injury report of the week on Wednesday. You have the traditional Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They just decided to forego all of that. And I think a lot of it is because of how much attention from the outside the whole concussion issue is bringing into the Dolphins and the NFL as a whole. So you saw last week on the short week, the Dolphins went from Sunday, Tua took a hit to the head. It was not diagnosed as a concussion. They said he cleared concussion protocol. Both the team doctor and the independent neurologist that's assigned to it, who has now been terminated by the NFL and NFLPA, they cleared him, and then he played in the second half, played well, as a matter of fact, and he spoke well in the post-game press conference. Cleared concussion tests all the days leading up to Thursday night against the Bengals. Spoke well when we spoke to him at the Tuesday press conference before that game, and was frankly playing well up until he took that hit that knocked him out on Thursday night. So you do end up seeing those two blows to the head in a matter of 5 days. It was 4 days later that the second one occurs, and then so much attention has been brought to it, especially when we saw the optics of Tua being on the ground motionless, his reaction, the hands. I don't have to paint the whole picture. We all saw it, and him being carted away and attended to at University of Cincinnati medical facilities. But now, after we saw all of that, then I think it was a savvy move to not play it the whole week. Like, all right, we're trying to see if we can get Tua back within this week. After we just saw him return on a short week after one blow to the head that was not ruled a concussion. Definitely have a concussion on Thursday night. Then now just take your time. It's true to Mike McDaniel's sentiment from the beginning that right now they're not worried about a timeline. They just want Tua to be healthy. So you stay true to that. Roll them out early. Just say we're planning this week to have Teddy Bridgewater, and then we'll take it from there going forward.
Yeah, and you know what? We solicited your Twitter questions online, and thank you very much for responding. I'll get to our first Twitter question in a second. But, here's the other thing, Furones, with this situation that we're in, is that the NFL seems to have dueling medical opinions here, correct? That the UNC, the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, cleared Tua And now you have a bunch of other neurologists who we've heard from online saying, no, Tua should have never been cleared. And when you have these conflicting medical opinions, I don't know what you do here. And look, and I'm not trying to get political here one bit, but we saw this during COVID, didn't we? With the masks. And one group of medical professionals said the masks were a good way to protect yourself. Another group of medical professionals said it wasn't. And so I'm not sure how the NFL and the NFLPA eventually decide which group of neurologists that they want to listen to. I don't know if because look, the UNC, Furones, the guy I keep saying the guy, the person, it could be a man or a woman, the person that you hired for this job, at some point you had trust in them and their training and their judgment, and now you don't. And so, do you just keep going until you get the neurologist who gives you the answers that you want, or how do you decide who you're going to listen to here, and who's going to make that decision? Is it going to be Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner? Is it going to be DeMaurice Smith, the executive director of the Players Association? You could really go down a rabbit hole here. And so I'm not exactly sure how this gets resolved as far as, how you decide what you're going to do if a player has that gross motor instability. If he has his bell rung, is that automatically you're out for the rest of the game? Furones, I don't know. I like the system that they had set up, and you guys know that as I wrote on sunsentinel.com, and as you, by the way, good tweet by you when I said I need to be educated or re-educated on brain injury. Not alone.
I just need to be educated. I don't know.
Very wise observation by you that didn't get by me. Good tweet by you, but look, I'm old school. I'm behind the times. I admit it. I'm a caveman, a dinosaur, whatever you want to say. I'd have played Tua on Thursday because he was. I would have started him. I would have started him because he was cleared by doctors. But I probably would have let him back in the Buffalo Bills game, and probably not in the third quarter. He was injured late in the second. He sat out at halftime, came back in the third. I'd have probably let him back in the fourth because the UNC cleared him. And by the eyeball test, Tua looked okay. I mean, he came back in the game and he played well. So I liked the system that they had, the current system. I thought it worked. Do you have any thoughts on the current system? Do you think changes are necessary?
Well, I do think it's a step in the right direction when you take into account what the NFL and NFLPA put in that joint statement about the gross motor instability. If you see that, then say, okay, let's roll him out for the game. If we have all these differing opinions and whatnot, then look, if you show the signs that Tua showed, grabbing at the head at the first time when he went to the ground, and do you do that when it's your back that's hurting? When he got pushed to the ground by Bills linebacker Matt Milano, he did hit his back first, but then the back of his head from the whiplash did hit the ground. So why is he grabbing at his head for that? And then shaking off the cobwebs, and then stumbling once, almost to the ground, getting up and stumbling again. He's being held up by teammates, and then everyone's telling him, okay, take it easy. We need to get the professionals out here on the field. He's checked on the field, checked in the locker room. And I'm with you as far as if I'm Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins coach, then sure, if the advice I'm receiving from the prognosis I'm receiving from the medical professionals is he did not sustain a concussion and he is able to play, then yeah, I'm going to play my starting quarterback. So I'm with you as far as in the Thursday night game, and he was tested for concussions the days leading up to it, cleared all of those, and I would have done the same thing. It's very unfortunate that then he gets hit the same exact way of falling to the ground. Now this time a lot more violent. There was a lot more force on Josh Tupo's tackle sack on him, spinning him down. Nothing against the Bengals nose tackle. I mean, it's a very fast play that's developing, and he's got to do what he's got to do to get to the ground. Obviously, he outweighs him by probably double, just about. But yeah, and then in the Sunday game against Buffalo, it's crazy how you got to kind of separate yourself, because even me, not even part of the team, as I'm watching in the press box, I'm there thinking, my first reaction before I even think about, oh, does he have a concussion, is, oh, but wait, Tua can't Tua can't come out of this game, right? They're competing in a very hard-fought first half with the Buffalo Bills, the Super Bowl favorites at home, this big AFC East matchup, and then I kind of just not even a minute later had to separate myself and say, whoa, what am I even saying? He could have sustained a concussion here. If that's the case, we got to get him out of there. So, yeah, and then as far as how quickly, just for the second half to be able to come out that quickly was a little bit shocking in the moment. Then we did see him end up playing just fine and speaking just fine, as I noticed every time we spoke to him, therefore after that. So I think for the most part, yeah, I'm with you on a lot of those, Perk.
Yeah. Let's go out to our Twitter question, and again, thank you very much for submitting these questions. Even the people who questioned my judgment, I saw y'all out there. I'm getting to you too.
Questioning.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, here's our first question of the day, and it comes from XO, and it's a simple one. Is Tua okay? Here's our answer to this, Furones. From what we heard from players yesterday, he is okay, right? Players told us that they saw him at the facility and he was in good spirits and he was joking around and obviously none of those players are neurologists. Obviously, from me, the guy, right. We know that now, right? From me, the guy who said I would have played him against Buffalo. I take their word for it, but I'm going to trust the neurologist. Okay, I'm not doubting the players, but I'm going to trust the neurologist that Tua does need to sit out this week. But Furones, there's just so much gray area here, and even if you look at the UNCs, the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant who is independent. There's just so much room for judgment. And so when you ask, is Tua okay? Look, we've all seen boxing and MMA, right? Where somebody gets hit and they're dazed and they go back to the corner at the end of the round, and next round they come out and they're okay. And so that's kind of what I was thinking in the Buffalo game with Tua, that, yeah, okay, you shake the cobwebs out and you're okay. But, I would say Tua's okay, and his teammates said he was okay, but he is going to sit out this week. I'm guessing for optics, he'll probably sit out 2 games. But, Furones, do you think that Tua is okay, and do you think that he will be able to play after the Jets game?
Yeah, and more so than what I think, than the concrete data that we have from Coach Mike McDaniel that he has reported to us, the media, and essentially all the observers, is that all the tests and scans came back clean following Tua Tagovailoa's head injury, so his concussion. So that includes the X-rays and CT scans that he was already aware of when he spoke on Friday, and then we followed up with him. I asked him on Monday just to make sure that the MRI did come back negative, come back clean, which was the only thing that was still pending that he still had going on Friday. So from that regard, then, and this is what Mike McDaniel even said when the concussion occurred, is that he's happy and fortunate that it's not anything more than a concussion. There could be a lot more serious consequences that could come from such a blow to the head. So fortunately, Tua Tagovailoa, after he was dispatched from University of Cincinnati Medical Facility, was able to travel back with the team. A lot of people said that he was the same. He was the same Tua personality-wise. He just had the neck brace on. That was the only thing different about him, but he was the same happy, cheerful guy, joking around with teammates and, making sure everyone knew he was okay. So after a scary moment, it was good to see that at least, he is still the same guy. Christian Wilkins said as much. I think Jalen Phillips, Tyreek Hill. We spoke to a lot of Dolphins players yesterday, Mike Gesicki, that are around him a lot. So that is a good sign to see that he is at least okay considering the circumstances.
Right, and look, as we wrap up this segment talking about Tua, and look, we're going to talk about Teddy Bridgewater later in the show because it's hard to separate them now that Teddy is going to be the starter in place of Tua. But Furones, let's go to this other on-field question regarding Tua and his absence, and is there more pressure on Greg Little, the right tackle, or the play calling when Tua returns? Greg Little, of course, protects Tua's blind side. Greg Little's a professional. I don't think he's going to be shook and get all jittery and think, oh, my goodness, I have to do something different because I'm protecting Tua's blind side. but he could be hyper aware of his situation on the team. Again, I think he's a professional. I think it might be more on the play calling and sliding protection over there or something like that. I don't know that that's going to happen. I think that might be a consideration in the first game that Tua returns. What do you think? Will the Dolphins pay more attention to Tua's blind side when he returns? And should they?
Right. Yeah. So for the time being, at least you have Teddy Bridgewater, who is a right-handed quarterback, so it flips it more the traditional way. The left tackle protects the blind side. So you have Teron Armstead, assuming his health. He has been able to play through the toe ailment these last several weeks, although he doesn't practice, so he's always game ready. As a veteran, he's able to do that. But as far as if there's more pressure, I don't think so. I think you block the same way. I think he's trying to keep Tua Tagovailoa clean regardless of whatever injury he has sustained recently, regardless of if he's coming back from a concussion. Obviously, Tua's only going to come back once he is fully cleared. Even on the safe side, I think the Dolphins will be ultra conservative in that regard, especially with how much attention is on this issue right now from the league, the NFLPA, and then also just media nationally, I think internationally as well. This has become a topic again. How we saw several years ago, concussions came to the forefront. And I think this week with Tua's injury, and then how many we saw around the league, whether it be this is quarterbacks and receivers alike, pass catchers. Isaiah McKenzie had one, had to exit the Bills-Ravens game. We saw Tyrod Taylor, who was already subbing into the Giants game for Daniel Jones, and he suffered one. Cameron Brate on the Sunday Night Football game, and I'm pretty sure there was at least one other that I can, and probably even more. There were so many on Sunday. So this is an issue that has garnered a lot of attention, and I think for an offensive lineman, you're going to play the same way. You're trying to protect your quarterback at all costs regardless. So Greg Little, he can't have that in the back of his head that I am protecting a quarterback that has recently sustained a concussion once he does come back. And on the Dolphins side, they have to make sure Tua is only back on the field once all the symptoms have subsided, because a second concussion, while the first one was still in recency, could present very detrimental issues leading up to it could be fatal as well. So that is something you want to avoid at all costs. Make sure Tua has his time to come back.
Yeah, and let me add this. I said that was it. I think Greg Little has done a good job. I don't think it's going to affect him. Do you think it affects Tua's play when he rolls out and things like that? I would like to think not. I didn't see it affect him against Buffalo when he came back into the game. I didn't see it affect him against Cincinnati. So I don't think that it will. Your thoughts very quickly as we wrap up this segment. Do you think it'll affect Tua himself?
It could be tough to keep that out of the back of your head. I mean, when you have an injury like that and, you miss a few weeks and you kind of have to get used to your surroundings again, I could totally get a sense for that. On Tua's end, he's a tough kid, so he's going to try to play as close to as comfortably and as normally as he does approach the game than as before he sustained the concussion on Thursday, and then also what ended up being only ruled back and then later ankle injuries against Buffalo, although he did take a hit to the head in that game as well and had to clear concussion protocol.
Yep. All right. So that's where we'll leave it with Tua and that segment. Let's dive into our next segment. So it's 4 games into the season. The Dolphins are 3-1. We're pretty much at the quarter pole. It's a 17-game season, so not really. But look, a 3-1 record, that's better than most people expected, including myself. At this point, to me, Tyreek Hill is the team MVP. Tua playing very, very well. Mike McDaniel coaching well. On the other side, I just talked about what's going well. Look, that run game, Furones, it's lacking. I think they might be 30th in the league at 69.3 yards per game. I don't have it right here in front of me. Special teams, that's a little bit of a concern, right? With the missed extra point last game, the blocked field goal, the butt punt, the 103-yard kickoff return by Baltimore, and his laptop. All right.
Okay. I did the Sentinel video team.
We should just start with the whole second segment, correct? Okay. All right. Just let us know. Okay, you got me there on the screen? Okay. All right, folks, thanks for hanging with us. A little technical difficulties there, but we're back. We've got it worked out, and we're going to just ease on into segment number 2. And look, Furones, we're going to talk about the Dolphins at the quarter pole, and 3-1 record after 4 games. It's a 17-game season, so not quite the quarter pole, but you get what I'm talking about. 3-1 record. Incredible record by the Dolphins. I didn't think they were going to be at this mark. A lot of other people didn't think they were going to be at this mark after 4 games, but here they are. Tyreek Hill, in my opinion, is the MVP of the team at this point. Tua Tagovailoa playing very, very well. Great start to the season. Mike McDaniel, the rookie head coach, coaching very well. On the other side of the coin, the run game, it needs some improvement. It's almost non-existent. They've got to do something to get that run game going. We know that that's a big part of Mike McDaniel's offense. We saw it last year when he was the offensive coordinator in San Francisco. Special teams, you got to keep an eye on special teams, right? That's a third of the game. So last week we had the missed extra point, the blocked field goal. Before that, we had the butt punt. Before that, we had the 103-yard kickoff return at Baltimore to start the game for a touchdown. So we got to keep an eye on that. And then the defense. Look, y'all know I rep this defense. I love this defense. I think it's a game-changing, play-making defense, but the stats are just not good right now. They've got to pick up on the routine. And, but look, 3-1, you cannot complain. That is a great, great spot for this team after 4 games. So I think the report card would be good right now. There would be some things to watch, but the report card is going to be good right now. Things to watch are some of these injury problems that are creeping up. But Furones, what are your thoughts after 4 games with this Dolphins team?
Absolutely, Perk. I mean, this team is 3-1 through this first 4-game gauntlet. I mean, I was on record. I think I said it on the show, but I definitely said it in casual conversation as well. I thought this team would start 1-3 through this first 4 games. I probably thought you win at home against New England in the opener, and then losses at Baltimore to the Bills, and then at Cincinnati on the short week. So 3-1, and I had that. Although I was not as low on this team as you were, Perk, where you had them finishing below 500. I still had them getting to 10-7 by the end of the season, picking it up in the second 2 months, October, November, as the schedule softens up. So I didn't have them going 8-9 like you did, where they're already almost at that win total through 4 games. But
why are you calling me out like this, bro? I thought we were cool. What's going on here?
Just had to throw that out. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, to go 3-1 through that first 4-game gauntlet is really impressive, especially with how much new there is on this team, it's on offense specifically. But it is surprising that the run game, especially with Mike McDaniel, is a little bit behind the pass game. I thought it might start off the other way around, where maybe the run game got going early, and because that's kind of something that you could get together quickly, but I guess not in this case. The offensive line is learning a new blocking scheme, the outside zone. Mike McDaniel's implementing that. A lot of different coaches, so blockers going in with a new scheme. The run game a little bit behind right now, but for Tua to build this rapport immediately with Tyreek Hill, while he's been in there, Tyreek Hill so far 477 passing yards, and Jalen Waddle to have 381. That is remarkable through 4 games to have a combo of that caliber. So I think a lot of things clicking. The defense. It started off slow last year, too. It is game-changing. We have seen some glimpses of it, of course, in the Patriots game. The 3 takeaways, one of them for a defensive touchdown, that really turned that game, and the Patriots never really recovered from it. pass rush hasn't been there in a lot of cases. I think some of Josh Boyer's blitzes have probably been game planned for now at this point, that opposing offenses have seen them more often. So he called it this evolving chess match when we last spoke to him about what the defense has to do to still get pass rush. And, I mean, I'm not worried about it because they have the personnel to do that. They added these edge rushers, whether it be a Melvin Ingram. Trey Flowers is there now to add depth. I think we're going to see more of Andrew Van Ginkel as the season progresses because he was coming back from the appendix removal. Jalen Phillips will get it going. He still has a high pass rush win rate, even though he's not getting to the quarterback as often. So opponents have game planned well. The Ravens in particular, they handle the blitz well, sort of countering what was so effective the previous game. So, and it's still a small sample size. I think the defense will pick it up. I think I recall last year, midseason, X was making game-changing plays once they got to starting that win streak, whether it be the Texans in that middle of the year, the Ravens, that big upset on Thursday Night Football that sort of turned the tides for this team. I think eventually the defense will have a moment like that, and then you got to correct those little blunders that they've had on special teams. I know Danny Crossman will get that right.
Yeah. Let's go out to Twitter, Furones, for our second question. And it comes to us from at Johnny Foosball, and he wants to know what's up with our lack of consistent pass rush. You just touched on that. Look, I think Byron Jones plays a role in that also, because, you know, if you have that lockdown coverage at both corners with those two quality safeties back there, the quarterback has to hold the ball a little bit more, and that gives the pass rush a little bit more time to get to the quarterback. I know Jalen Phillips has been a topic of conversation, and Furones, as you've pointed out, he's winning a lot of these battles, right? His win percentage is pretty good, but he's just not closing the deal. I think the pass rush is going to come around. Jalen Phillips is a young player. The book is out on him, so it might be a case of where he's been scouted, and so now he's got to improve his game to answer to what they're doing to him. But Melvin Ingram, AFC Defensive Player of the Month, right? I think that was the title of the honor that he got. So
before his last game of the month too. He still had one more game in September to play that Thursday night.
Right.
On one of two teams that had it.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I think that the pass rush is going to come around, but I think Byron Jones, strange as it sounds, would help you get better results and more sacks. Your thoughts on the pass rush?
Absolutely. The cornerbacks play such a complementary role into that aspect of it, because when you have Xavier Howard, who hasn't been healthy, he's been dealing with a groin issue, so he hasn't appeared himself really since the Baltimore game when you saw Rashad Bateman beat him, and then he didn't catch up to Lamar Jackson. Even a play that he had right in front of him, the pick six that he really could have hit on, coming in front to intercept the out route very shallow, and he had the end zone in front of him if he picks it. He said that'll never happen again. We know X comes up with those plays. So right now, I think X, once he's healthy, you got to get Byron Jones back, and we don't know what the situation is there. Mike McDaniel said he might have an update midweek when we last caught up on that issue on Monday, so he still didn't have an update now that he is eligible through the first 4 games that he has missed on the PUP list of physically unable to perform list after that March lower leg surgery that he had performed. And it's interesting because it was something that seemed to be a possibility that he would come back all the way through training camp, and then we're continuing to follow up. Could he be back? Is he going to start week 1? And there was confidence that he could still be back for week 1. Then roster cut down day comes, and boom, he's still on the physically unable to perform list. That's 4 weeks off the bat. So that's been a part of it. When you have X on one side and Byron Jones on the other side fully healthy, and to add to that, Nick Needham as the nickel corner, he's effective in that role. Now, that also frees up all the aggressive blitzes that Josh Boyer wants to run at opponents, because now if you got one-on-one matchups that your corners are locking down, you don't need double coverage. You don't need the safety over the top as often. You still want to mix it up and have that with Javon Holland and the range he has back there. But you can blitz your Brandon Jones and even your Javon Holland from the safety positions more often when you have that available to you. So, and including how much they move around their linebackers, Jerome Baker being able to go inside, outside. and all the fun stuff that Boyer likes to do. So part of it is also, the opponents have seen it now for a little bit. So it is this chess match that Boyer now has to make adjustments to those adjustments as well. And I think we'll see that pick up as the season goes on.
Yeah, now let's go to the other side of the ball as we continue diving into the Dolphins at the quarter pole, 3-1 record. I think everybody's probably pleased overall, but there are some little things. Here's another one of those little things, and it comes to us from at Delaney1986 on Twitter. Why has the run game been so stagnant? Is it due to inconsistent running plays being called? Is it the personnel? Well, funny you should ask that, because I talked to Chase Edmonds after the Cincinnati game in the locker room, and he was telling me that, they're very much aware that the run game has been stagnant. He said there's a lot of runs that he wishes that he had back from that game because there were things that he missed. So, I think, as you said, alluded to, it's a new blocking scheme. It's a new running philosophy, this outside zone. And so I think it's just going to take some time. Will the running game come around? I don't know. I think the defense is going to come around. I think the pass rush is going to come around. I like the pass game. The run game, I'm not 100% sure. And look, you need that run game. If for no other reason, it takes pressure off the pass game. It makes your play calling easier. You can throw off a play action, all kinds of things. You want some, and you. Here's the other thing, Furones. Cincinnati, they stayed kind of in that shell coverage with two high safeties, and they were trying to prevent Waddle and Hill from burning them deep, even though Hill eventually got deep. If you could run the ball, you could have them drop one of those safeties down. They would have to bring that strong safety down, and now that puts you at a better offensive advantage. So there's a lot of things that spin off of that running game, and again, we know that's a priority for Mike McDaniel. They were 7th in the league last year in San Francisco when he was the offensive coordinator. So I hope the run game comes around, but I'm not sure that it will. Your thoughts on the run game, Furones?
Yeah, on the run game, I'll give Mike McDaniel the benefit of the doubt that it will get going. There is a lot of moving parts, a lot of newness that is involved in this with Mike McDaniel, and then the blockers learning this new scheme and the wide zone concepts. So, it appears that it does take some time. I know Raheem Mostert, though, he does have that experience with Mike McDaniel in San Francisco. So, that is one benefit. Chase Edmonds, wide zone is completely new to him. He's been running inside zone for as long as he can remember, his years in the NFL and college, and I'm not sure what he did in high school, but most likely. So when we've spoken to him, he said this is all new to him, going back to training camp. So it'll take some time. I'll give Mike McDaniel and this offense a benefit of the doubt in that regard. And if sometimes you need the run game to set up the deep passes. Sometimes it can work the other way around. So if some of those deep connections can then open up the run game with those safeties playing back that too high look, then go ahead and run against that and mix it up, and then see if you can't get some yards that way.
All right, and Furones, as we wrap up this segment on the Dolphins at the quarter pole, we will peek ahead slightly. And the schedule eases up a little bit in October, right? They're at the Jets this week, then they're home against Minnesota, home against Pittsburgh, and then at Detroit to wrap up the month of October. And so, the schedule, I don't know what they're going to do because of the injury situation and Teddy Bridgewater playing instead of Tua, who is off to such a great start. But, things are looking up for this team overall because of the 3-1 start. That not right now immediately, but things are looking up. So I think you do have to be pleased with what they showed in the first quarter of the season. And we talked about players very quickly. What about the coaching? Now I will say this. I'm not sure that this team has established its identity yet. How are you going to win on offense? How are you going to win on defense? It's been big plays. And look, offensively, we're going to get the ball into the hands of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, but you need to have something more than that. So a true style as far as, how much you can run the ball and how effectively and defensively you want to do like you did last year, but that's not established yet. Having said all that, I think the coaches have done a great job because you're 3-1 and you do have a whole lot of new in this offense. The defense, it's a whole lot of returnees, but offensively a lot of new. So I think the coaches have done a good job. Your thoughts on the coaches as we wrap up this Dolphins at the quarter pole segment?
Absolutely, yeah. They have found ways to win some games that a lot of people would say they should have lost. They're down 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter on the road against Baltimore. And sure, that Ravens defense isn't what it has been in the past. And we saw it at the end of the Buffalo game. They blew another lead in that one. And their DBs were hobbled and what have you, but they still pulled that off. And yeah, Tua had open receivers. Tyreek Hill deep twice. He hit him. He hit him both times. And Buffalo, yeah, the home weather play a factor in it. The Bills just being completely drenched in sweat, heat, illness, cramps going down at the end of the game. Them not used to the heat and humidity in South Florida. Hey, that's part of it. The Dolphins later on, they're going to have to play in the cold in Buffalo. They're going to have to play in the cold in New England on New Year's Day. So, hey, you take advantage of that early game schedule when you're in the South Florida heat and humidity at Hard Rock Stadium and pull off a win in that one, even on a day where your defense was on the field for 90-plus plays. It's always harder to play reactionary football in those kind of conditions, and the defense still, as much as they gave up yardage, gave up first downs, the time of possession battle was lost. They were on the field for most of it. They kept them out of the end zone. The bend but don't break. They found a way to win the game. So I think that's a good quality to have, even if you say, well, the Ravens really should have won that game. They dominated for 3 quarters. The Bills should have won the game in week 3. And sure, that might be true, but finding ways to win games is a good quality to have because no one's going to care if you go and pull off an upset in the playoffs because you found a way to win a game you should have lost. Everyone's going to say, hey, you advanced. Cincinnati Bengals last year, they got all the way to the Super Bowl and made that run. And even though Joe Burrow was sacked, 9-10 times against Tennessee, they won that game. They pulled off the upset against Kansas City when really they had no business coming all the way back in the second half. They got to the Super Bowl. They earned that by finding ways to win games in the playoffs. So no one's going to take anyone away from them if they continue to do that going forward. And then now you have games that now you're going to be favored in these. A lot of fans were wondering how come they're still underdogs at Cincinnati when we're 3-0. Well, it's really difficult to go on the road and on Thursday night on a short week, especially the type of game you just played on Sunday. And then face the defending Super Bowl, the AFC champions, reigning Super Bowl appearance on a Thursday night short week. So that's a tough environment to go into. That's why they were the underdogs. Now they're going to go into some games where they're favored. And hey, the Jets, we're going to talk about them in the next segment. This matchup, they're no pushover either. And the Vikings at home when you come back. Steelers, always tough under Mike Tomlin, even if quarterback situation, whatever's happening there, getting the rookie Kenny Pickett in there, and then the Lions to finish up October. They've proven to be better than anticipated, I think. So it's still some games that the Dolphins are going to have to bring their best and make sure they come out with these wins that they're going to be expected to pull off.
Yeah, and look, just to wrap this thing up and get back to what you said about Buffalo and the game handed to them. Those Buffalo fans were salty. Look, I told you I got a cousin, Tim, who's from Buffalo. He lives in D.C. now. He comes down for the game every year. And one of the texts that he sent me, I will clean it up, was, man, we handed that game to y'all's ass on a silver platter. And I was like, wow. And that's cleaning it up. Sorry, I guess I can say that, right?
Nobody circles the salty wagon like the Buffalo Bills, right?
That's it. So, yeah, Bills Mafia was a little bit salty. So on that, we will, I'll probably get fired. But on that, we will wrap up segment 2. We will go into segment 3. All right, so it's prediction time. And speaking of me being fired, we'll go to Twitter. Because there's somebody out there who thinks I shouldn't have this job. Well, there's a lot of people out there who think I shouldn't have this job, right?
And you're always just generally under fire on Twitter.
I am, man. I try to be nice, but I try to be honest also. So, here we go. We're gonna make our prediction on the game. I do get this from @TrendRacialAngel. I believe it is, but it's have you still not seen Tua throw 30+ yards like you claimed a few weeks ago? Also, how did you get this job? All right, we'll start with the second one first. I applied. I mean, anybody could have applied, right? I applied. That was it. I mean, it's that simple. I filled out the application and they called me in and I ended up with the job. I don't know. I mean, you know, this is my third time here, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. Going to the first part, look, I was a Tua critic, doubter, questioner from the standpoint of the deep pass and the standpoint of decision making. I've always said that Tua is a NFL starting caliber quarterback, but he has proven me wrong so far on the deep throw, the ability to throw the deep throw. And, you know, for me to say otherwise would just be plain stupidity. We've all seen it, right? So I would like to see it for an entire season. But so far, you know, Tua 1, Perk 0. So, you know, that's
and it's because
you want to pile on for all this?
No. Well, it's because you got the job once the preseason was already wrapping up. You didn't get to see all of training camp and see all these marvelous, spectacular throws that Tua was making that hadn't been on game film yet. But you could have looked at Twitter and seen the fan video that was filmed of him hitting Tyreek Hill deep over the middle, effortlessly, 60 air yards, perfect spiral, didn't have to put anything extra on it, perfectly in stride, and that should have let you know everything you need to know, that Tua was going to have a great season. Obviously now he's got the concussion issue, he'll have to come back from that, but great start for Tua, and then we saw it especially in that Ravens comeback. Really impressive there. So, but you also could have read my story, Perk, where I detailed just how much Tua has improved his throwing ability through the offseason, working with his trainer, Nick Hicks, and then also back with the Dolphins once OTAs, mini camp, and everything got going. So you could have read that as well, and no.
No, I did. You remember I did read it, and I referenced it on the opening show, but yeah, no, it actually ended up making my life worse because it's like you had the evidence right there and you chose to ignore it. So, you know, that's life. On we go. So, look, the Dolphins, this game, and we'll get into the Teddy Bridgewater here. And look, if you want to jump in and talk about Teddy Bridgewater versus Skylar Thompson, feel free. I'm a Teddy person. I think you've got to play Teddy here, right? Am I correct?
All right, so here's how much time we'll devote to this debate. That's it.
All right, there we go. All right. So Teddy Bridgewater is your starting quarterback. The Dolphins are at the Jets. The Jets are 2-2. You know, the Jets, Furones, they do have some good receivers out there, right? When you look at Garrett Moore and
Garrett Wilson.
Right, and Elijah Moore and Corey Davis. Garrett Wilson. You know, and the Dolphins are a little bit banged up in the secondary. And the Jets got Zach Wilson, their quarterback, back. But you flip it around, and that Jets offensive line is really, really banged up. They've suffered some big injuries, and it's kind of a patchwork offensive line. Now, in general, I don't think that it's a winning formula in the NFL to go on the road with your backup quarterback. But, you know, after and thanks for reminding everybody I picked this team to go 8-9. After my 8-9 prediction, I'm starting to think there might be a little magic, a little early season magic to this team. So I won't give my pick yet, but I'll leave it there, and I will throw it to you. You know, look, we know the Dolphins need to be able to run the ball, and that would be great starting this week, right, to give Teddy a break. But we also know they've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and that is money. Your thoughts on what you expect to see happen on Sunday?
Sure, yeah. Running the ball, it would be nice to start picking it up. Pass rush should be nice to start picking it up. Maybe this is the point in the season where after you got through just winning however you need to in that first 4-game stretch, now you want to see some of the things that you didn't have going start to get going once you hit this part of the schedule, beginning with the Jets. I have seen the Jets are actually pretty solid in run defense. Saw 6th in the league in yards per attempt, if I have that correctly. So through a small sample size of the first 4 games, they've been okay in that regard. So would be nice if we could still run the ball against them regardless. But, you know, they got Quinnen Williams over there on the D-line, Carl Lawson. You know, they drafted Quinnen Williams in that number 3 pick. few drafts ago. I forget what year. I think it was 18, 19, one of those. But, he has shown to be solid there. You mentioned that offensive line, so it'd be nice if that pass rush gets going this week. They already have Kai Becton, Dwayne Brown, and George Fant all on injured reserve, and then they just lost Max Mitchell. So those are 4 tackles now. You're going to like a Connor McDermott is who I'm looking at when I take a gander at the depth chart for the Jets. So on the edge, that's going to be a matchup that I look for the Dolphins to win over there. And then the Jets, it's an upstart team. You saw them with those 3 first-round picks. They're starting to collect some talent. Now you give your Zach Wilson some weapons, and you saw that he provided a spark now that he was back in the mix, quarterbacking while Joe Flacco was in for him as he dealt with his injury, Wilson did. So that was a spark to then get them over the Steelers last week, and then, hey, no pushover team like we mentioned in the previous segment. They're 2-2 through 4 games, so you got to watch out for them now. You can't take them lightly, and you got to make sure with that extra rest, that mini bye, you do come in refreshed and go and take this road win.
Yeah, I agree. You can't. Fans can take the Jets lightly and say, it's the Jets. The Dolphins cannot. They've got to respect this team. Furones, I'm going Dolphins 20-16. I'm going with a low-scoring game, a close game. I think Teddy Bridgewater is able to pull it out for him. But, look, I do still have some offensive concerns, and you can see by the 20 points that I pick, this team isn't consistently scoring touchdowns yet. Again, offense takes time. Run game takes time. I don't think it's going to come together this week. I see signs of things improving and more familiarity. And as an example of that, you recall in the opener, the offensive line talked about, communication and identification was an issue. That hasn't been an issue since. So that's a sign of offensive progress in an important area. So I do think we're seeing signs of offensive progress. Again, the run game would be nice. I thought the red zone offense was making some good progress, a little bit of a setback last week, but I think that's still good. So I'm going Dolphins 20-16. Good performance by the defense. The offense continues to find its place. What are you thinking?
Hey, and you mentioned the backup quarterback on the road, but hey, Teddy Bridgewater is an experienced NFL starter. He has 63 starts under his belt, and he's got a winning record. He's 33-30 in those. Pro Bowler a long time ago with the Vikings. Did have a playoff appearance with them, but he's done it as a backup. He's done it as a starter. He's done it as a backup that replaces a starter due to injury. You recall the 2019 Saints. He came in and he was 5-0, replacing Drew Brees. Critical 5-game stretch for that team without Brees, and then he was able to pull off wins in each one of those, if you remember that season. And then just last year, he was a starter with the Denver Broncos, and he went 7-7 on a team that, frankly, I think the Dolphins have a better roster than last year's Broncos team, considering everything else around the quarterback. So, yeah, I would say a 500 team to win on the road against the Jets. If you take him like with that Broncos team last year, I think these Dolphins are better. So yeah, I would take the Dolphins, and we got a score prediction, right? So I'll go Dolphins 27, Jets 20, something like that, something in the 20s.
All right, there we go, and really, as we conclude this, Furones, what are your thoughts on the Dolphins' health? Are you optimistic? Because we're kind of, the Dolphins were one of the teams that managed to keep it together early in the season, and we saw some of their opponents, Buffalo and Baltimore, were dealing with early season injury issues. Maybe it's coming to the Dolphins right now. Let's hope not, but it might be. One thing that I thought was critical to the Dolphins' season success was Tua, Xavier, and Teron. I should use their whole names, right? Tua Tagovailoa, Xavier Howard, and Teron Armstead staying healthy.
Oh, I wasn't sure which Tua you were referring to.
Right, or Teron or Xavier, right? Yeah. Right. There's so many of them on the team. So we'll see what happens with that trio of players. But health is always a big thing. Do you think their health is? How do you feel about what you've seen and what we'll see in the next few weeks?
It's a concern. You already know you're going to be without your starting quarterback, and there is no timetable for his return. We mentioned it previously. Different concussions, or different people have different timelines for recovery from concussions. You want Tua to take his time coming back from his. So you're already going to be down your quarterback. Xavier Howard, he's been trying to play through the groin issue, and then he did have to leave the last game against Cincinnati, and at times hasn't really appeared himself. They didn't have him on Jamar Chase, probably a lot because of that groin issue last game, and he was still getting beat. So you worry about that. Byron Jones, when he can come back, and then when he does come back, is how much he has to progress and slowly get back into the thick of things. Teron Armstead, who has been, quite frankly, he's been injury prone in the past, but he has been able to play through injuries as well. Mike McDaniel has always expressed such a confidence in his ability to play through injuries, and he's shown it so far. He's been dealing with that toe injury since week one. I know it only took 1 week for him to end up on the injury report with the Dolphins. After already being limited in training camp, but we have seen him play through it, and he's held it down at left tackle. So you can see that he is able to play even through injury. So yeah, the cornerbacks, you want to get them healthy. That's the biggest thing, aside from Tua getting him back. But yeah, injuries play a part in it. At least it hasn't bitten the Dolphins so much where they're just depleted, like we see happen so often in the NFL with so many teams. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are missing some Pro Bowl, All-Pro types, and not injuries that they enter the game questionable and are still able to play through and play hurt. We're talking about missing several weeks, so the Dolphins have dodged that for the most part. They are dealing with the Tua issue now, so get over that. But yeah, for the most part, it's every team deals with injuries, but at least it hasn't bitten the Dolphins too much. But there are some concerns for sure.
There are. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this week's Dolphins Deep Dive. We got two guys predicting Dolphins victories here, so we'll see what happens. I'm Chris Perkins. That's David Furones. You're watching Dolphins Deep Dive on sunsentinel.com. We'll check in with y'all next week.